The Journey Unbound is a documentary series that follows the journey across the United States, meeting with military, veterans, and first responders along the way. The series is hosted by me, former Navy SEAL Josh Jakub. The focus is simple: sit down, have real conversations, and document the lived experiences of those who have served. They are honest, first-hand accounts of the challenges that come with service, both on deployment and back home. This is not just a series about service. This is a series about what comes after and how healing is possible.
Well, we have been on the road for nearly 3 days now. It's been a lot of miles, a lot of deep stories too. And these stories have just been extremely, eye-opening, but just the hope that I see with all these stories is pretty incredible. That was the whole reason of this, whole docu-series, was to hear those untold stories, to let people know it's okay to share, what you got going on in your life, to hopefully, one, help yourself, but help other people too. For me, it really hit of like how far I've come. I was on the road to Alabama and I was going down the interstate and I passed a silver F-150 truck pulling a U-Haul trailer. It looked exactly like the setup that I had when I moved from San Diego to Virginia Beach. I just graduated SQT and language school, after graduating BUD/S and all that. And it was time to go to my first team at SEAL Team 2 over in Virginia Beach, and I chose to drive cross country. I thought, what better time am I gonna have to see the entire nation coast to coast? And I had a silver F-150 with a little U-Haul trailer, and that's what I drove from coast to coast alone and just explored, and got to go home at one point, and then I continued on to Virginia Beach. As I'm passing this F-150 and U-Haul trailer, I look on the side of the U-Haul trailer and it says, something along the lines of "Visit Virginia Beach." That's where I started, and this is where I'm at, and like the different stages of life that I've gone through since that time, of one, the excitement of going to my first team, and then, 9 years in the military, then I get out, and then now I'm traveling on a motorcycle, hearing the stories of people that are just like me. I mean, stories of, people that have held things in, and it made me really reflect on myself and, how far I've come. I saw Robert McCarthy, Brian's son and Holly's son, out just having the time of his life in the military. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to go experience the world. And I thought, what better way to follow than in my grandfather's footsteps and join the Air Force. So I went to go join the Air Force, and I was gonna be a bulldozer operator. At the end of the day, the recruiter didn't show up one day. I was supposed to, take him paperwork, and I ended up meeting a Navy recruiter, and he convinced me to, try one of the special forces of the Navy or whatever, and hand me a brochure, and the first thing was Navy SEAL. And I was like, that's really cool. I wanna try this. I just felt like God was just like taking me by the hand at that time, and I was super strong in my faith before I left for the military. very strong. I got baptized right before I went in to the Navy, and extremely strong in my faith. As soon as I graduated boot camp, we moved across the street to start our pre-buds, and I get a call from my grandfather. And my grandfather calls and says, "Hey, I didn't want to tell you in boot camp because I didn't want you to be worried, but I have stage 4 prostate cancer." I was scared, I was confused, and he told me, he's like, "I'm gonna fight this. I'm gonna fight it." And we made a pact right then. He goes, "If you don't give up in buds, I won't give up in healing myself and beating this cancer." So my grandfather, Captain Joe, he was a sheriff's deputy for a long time, was in the Air Force for a few years. We made that pact, and that was the one thing that really stuck with me through all of it. I can't give up, because he would give up in that moment, right? So I ended up passing buds, and I have one of our caps that we wear. I wrote Joshua 1:9, the verse in there: "Be strong and courageous, do not be terrified or discouraged, because the Lord your God's always with you." And I wrote that inside my hat. I had it during Hell Week. It was written in there with Sharpie, and I was able to give him that hat when I graduated. So it meant a lot to, one, have him there. He beat cancer, one of the toughest people I know on this planet, and I think that pact had more impact than I realized now looking back at it. For me, obviously, I wanted to conquer this dream of mine, this goal, and for him, it was his life on the line. I was super strong in my faith before I left. I was locked in. I was locked in pretty hard, and you know, once I got to the team, it just kind of faded, and through buds, it kind of faded, and it was just, I really strayed away. I really, really did, and it kind of showed throughout my Navy career. You know, throughout those 9 years, I was making some poor decisions throughout that, and I definitely was having fun in the Navy for sure, and probably more fun than I should have had. My career was, I say it's average, and maybe not to the, you know, average military person, but for me it was average. It was average for the SEAL teams, and it wasn't anything spectacular. But the one thing that really hit was, I think I got out too fast. I think I was so dead set, the grass was greener on the other side, that I wanted to get out of the Navy, and my passion at the time was playing guitar and writing songs, and I had met a couple of country singers, and I was like, I really want to try my hand at this. They're on the road just like I was all the time, and I was like, I could live this life, you know. I want to try that scene, and I wanted it for the wrong reasons. I wanted fame. I wanted to be in a coffee shop at some point in Nashville, and people would come up and take pictures with me. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be famous. And I think it gets talked about a lot of Navy SEALs, and it's this awe factor. You know, for 9 years, people were telling me, "That's so cool, you're so cool, blah, blah, blah," and just validating me every single day. And I have a purpose, right? I have a purpose to, you know, protect my brothers on the team, and like go overseas and try to protect the country, you know. And then when I get out, no one knows I'm a Navy SEAL anymore. No one, like, it's not on people's minds anymore. So all that validation needed to come from somewhere else, and I just wasn't getting it anywhere else. And then I started going out more, and in Nashville they call it networking. And networking is just you going out to the bars and drinking, mingling with people, getting rights, all this stuff. But I took it a little too far, and I was drinking probably 7 days a week. I mean, I was out doing drugs. You know, I wasn't doing the hard stuff, but I started, like, you know, smoking weed, and then I started, you know, doing cocaine in Nashville, it was just normal. Like everybody did it. Everybody's this like rock star lifestyle that they're trying to portray. And if I'm around all these people all the time, I'll have validation because they'll think I'm fun. They'll think I'm like a cool person to be around and all these things. And one thing that really hits hard is my grandfather. I've never had the courage to tell him. I always felt so guilty because I had made this pact with him and I respected him so much. And then in this fall, I'm partying so hard and so much that I'm just like out doing all these things. And it was such a fall. It went against my morals so hard that I was like, you know what? I know this is wrong, but I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to fill this void in me. It got to the point where I was empty. I was a complete empty shell. In the downfall of me trying to fill that void, I was doing with everything. I was doing with alcohol, I was doing with drugs, I was doing it with women. You know, I was trying to fill that time of like, I am worth something. I am worth something. I'm trying to get validation from anywhere I possibly can because I've lost all of my validation. There was many times where I would just sit there in my house all alone, completely hungover, just, I don't want to be here anymore. I knew I wanted to fight it. I knew I wasn't going to give up. That's one thing that I wasn't willing to do, was to give up. So I got a job at a shooting range, and it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life because being a Navy SEAL, I'm looked at as like, you know, top tier type guy, and like, you should be good at shooting, right? And I get in there with a former police officer and a former Green Beret, you know, in the Army, and man, these guys were good. They were out shooting me, and I was like, man, I really need to work on this. So it gave me a sense of purpose. You know, I was teaching people how to protect themselves, you know, self-defense type stuff. And I loved teaching the new shooter course. It was awesome. I got to teach people that just wanted to protect their family, single moms that wanted to protect their kids, and it just gave me a sense of purpose. And I think that was kind of the start of my climb out of my hole. The first day, they showed me all around and they took me to the back room where the offices were in the classroom, and there was this girl sitting in there and she was doing marketing stuff on the computer, and I'll never forget, I was like, she is the prettiest girl I've ever seen in my entire life. That girl was Colleen, my fiance now. She has seen me from the beginning where I needed a job for money because I couldn't pay for groceries to where I am now, which is pretty incredible. The shooting range had a golf tournament that they were sponsoring. Colleen had asked, she's like, hey, we have a team. We have 4 slots if you want to make a team for this golf tournament. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. It was at that golf tournament, I believe, that someone told me about the American Warrior Association. I decided one night, I was like, you know, I'm gonna put in an application, and I got a call probably the next day. And a guy named Jason called, and he's like, hey, you should come out on a program, heard my story. And I didn't really share my entire story, but told him a little bit, and he's like, you need to come out on a program. And I was like, you know what, no, it's okay. You can let somebody that really deserves it, you know, someone that really has stuff going on. He goes, no, you come out on a program. I promise it'll help. As I'm sitting there, you know, around the fire, I'm just like, what am I missing, you know, in my life? You know, what is it that I'm trying to search for? And I just thought about it. I was like, when was the happiest that I was in my life? And I thought back to me as a kid in Indiana. Growing up, I rode dirt bikes, 4-wheelers, always playing outside. I thought to myself, I was like, that was the happiest time, was when I was in Indiana. So I told the guys there, I was like, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'm looking for Indiana Josh again. I learned what moral injury was, and that was something that I had never heard of. It was my first time hearing it up on the mountain. And as I'm up on the mountain, you know, I'm trying to put things in my life into that category. And for me, it was my fall, right? It was me going out and partying and doing drugs when I know morally that wasn't a part of me and my life and my family, and it went against everything that, you know, my family stood for. And I felt a lot of shame and a lot of guilt from that. And then being with women to feel some sort of validation like that made me feel guilty as well for, you know, hurting them emotionally. It didn't sit right with me, and I felt so much shame and guilt for my actions. For me, that trip was a moment to kind of let all that go and to like give it to God. And, you know, whether I was able to tell everybody I'm sorry, it was just a way to tell myself, hey, it's okay, to give myself grace that people do make mistakes. I made mistakes and I had to forgive myself for the mistakes that I made. I got back in my faith, and I'm not saying it happened overnight. You know, when I got back from that trip, I was still, you know, teetering the line, 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. But over time, that foot, you know, started inching over closer and closer to, you know, being fully in my faith. And then about 6 months go by, and I get a call, and it's AWA, and they're like, hey, our men's program needs volunteers to go out on a trip and help lead it. And I said, okay. We kind of ran the program. I was just in love. I was in love with helping people, and I was in love with being able to have empathy for other people. And I ended up volunteering the month after that too, and went back out. And it wasn't until that trip that they were looking for people to be hired on, you know, to start leading these men's trips. They offered me a job and I took it, and it was one of the greatest decisions of my life. Never in a million years would I have thought I'd work for a nonprofit when I got out of the military, or help people, or been in a faith-based organization. I know God put me on that trip for a reason. I know God put me exactly in that moment with those people. For me, there's just a lot of gratitude and a lot of peace that's come from me trusting God again, me trusting the process that God has laid out, me trusting to put my feet on the path that God has made. And the Journey Unbound has been absolutely incredible so far. I'm blown away. I was so scared to go out. I was so scared to share my story. And I was just terrified this whole time. I was so scared to fail. I was just so scared to fail. I didn't want to let people down. And what I've seen so far on this trip is just God's hand in everything, man. It's just hearing these people's stories and seeing the hope that's come from them, you know, going on AWA trips, and how it's healed, and how now, like, they're going out too, spreading the word and like healing other people. It's just, and it's a shame that I almost gave up back then, and none of this would be possible. So I'm just so grateful to be here, to be able to do this. And to have such a good network of people, to have a fiance that boosts me up every single day and just so proud of me for where I've come from and where I'm at, to have family that cares about me. In those moments where I was struggling really hard, my mom, she started texting me every morning. Every single morning she'd text me, hey, good morning. I hope you have the best day. I love you. She texted me every morning since then, and that was probably 3 years ago. I've been to a lot of therapy, working on self-worth, and oh man, I think in this boat right now in Florida on this journey, I feel it. I feel worth for the first time, and it's pretty awesome. I feel like it all makes sense now, which is pretty cool. And this is something I've been searching for a long time. I didn't realize how much I would gain from this trip, but I feel like in this moment, I finally got it. I finally realized. This is a moment I'll never forget. And an experience that I'll never forget. I don't want people to have to give up. There is hope. And it may take 4 years and a lot of miles on a motorcycle for you to realize you have worth, you have purpose. As Bill Rankin would say, tomorrow's a new day and it's never been used. And I want to live every single day and just try to help as much as I possibly can. I will see you guys in the morning, bright and early. We got 572 miles to do. It's time to ride. But first, sleep. See you guys. Oh, good morning. So today, we have a long day ahead of us. Making my way over to Port St. Lucie, Florida, from Pensacola, so it's just shy of 600 miles. Sun's just coming up right now, so we're gonna go load the bike and make our way. Try not to wake up the whole neighborhood with the motorcycle. I'm excited to get over to Port St. Lucie. I have a good friend named Jason over there, so see you there.